Thank you very much, and I want to fully associate myself with the remarks of my majority colleagues. The remarks that hit me most directly were my full committee chair's reference to the Constitution and to our obligations in Congress to be the appropriators, to provide oversight, and recalling also that appropriations start in the House. And so although both the Senate and the House have had their oversight committees, have had their budget committees, we now start in a process that is our responsibility to start here today in this subcommittee. And that is critical to our work. And so I share the concerns that the Secretary would not appear here today to help us to start that process. To my colleague, Mr. Graves, comments in a couple of different areas. You asked about accountability. Where is the personal accountability? Mr. Ross is the secretary of this department, and he is accountable for the decisions that were made and are made in putting that budget together, and we are entitled to ask him along those lines. So yes, there is accountability at the secretary level. You have offered up a different level, and actually I've sat in these hearings with many of the good people here to my left testifying. We have asked them about how budgets are policies and priorities. Budgets reflect policies and priorities. This is not politics, it's policies. What policies do you support and not support? What priorities do you prioritize and not prioritize? And several of the persons that you would offer up to testify here today have basically said, hey, look, the decision was made above my head. Now, presumably, the Secretary is where those decisions were made since he's in charge of the department, and presumably he knows how he balanced everything across all of those departments. So I think it's entirely appropriate for us here to expect that level will be before this committee when we start this appropriations process. Yes, of course, we have experts. They're all good advocates for their divisions, but they're not the priority setters. They are in their divisions, but not in the big picture. If somehow the Secretary does not have that role, then perhaps he should not be Secretary. But I say that just because of, I think this is a failure of accountability. So, you know, I share the concerns of my colleagues on areas that I wanted to ask about. I wanted to ask about EDA cuts. I wanted to ask about cuts, significant cuts to NOAA that have already been referenced here today. The capable NOAA administrator testified just a few weeks ago that those cuts were handed down, and I'm putting words in his mouth, so with apologies, were handed down from atop. So I wanted to know, okay, well, how was that judgment made against something else? He's not capable of doing that. He won't do it, but the Secretary is responsible for it. So that's the reason here. I think I definitely wanted to ask about a 75% cut to the Minority Business Development Agency, which is so critical to minority-owned businesses across our country. I could give you a whole range of examples of minority-owned businesses. 11 million minority-owned businesses that are responsible and are benefited from this program. Is it a policy of this administration that they do not support minority-owned businesses? Because that's exactly what's reflected in a 75% cut to a budget. Maybe there's a reason. Maybe there's a judgment that it's done some other way that has not been answered. So there are a lot of questions that can only be answered at the Secretary level, and furthermore should be answered at that level as a matter of us discharging our constitutional responsibilities.